The DOJ put 2 prosecutors on leave following this sentencing memorandum. This is a case I have talked about since 2023 and was even cited by the defense at one point for a video I did discussing the actions of the government and claims by the government in this case. There is a lot I do not like about how this case was handled as it went on. Now, this particular document is now listed on the docket as filed in error, and as I said, 2 DOJ prosecutors are on leave. So let's see what the current government might not like about this one. Now, at the very top here, I just want to go right into what the government is asking for. 27 months of incarceration, 36 months of supervised release, 200 hours of community service, and the mandatory assessment of $100 for each felony count. And they do say it's at the top of the applicable guidelines. So you might be wondering, what did he do? What did he get convicted of that is going to cause such a high sentence to be put forward? Let's read. The defendant, Taylor Taranto, perpetrated a hoax on June 28, 2023 by falsely claiming that he would cause a car bomb to drive into the National Institute of Standards and Technology. The next day, he drove to a residential neighborhood in Washington, D.C., causing a substantial disturbance to the residents and regional law enforcement. When the police responded to the scene of a potential car bomb near a restricted area that was protected heavily by the United States Secret Service, Taranto tried to flee and left his van behind. After securing Taranto's van and executing a lawful search of the vehicle, police found a CZ Scorpion, an MNP pistol, and hundreds of rounds of ammunition in his backpack, which he left in the van. Taranto unlawfully carried the pistols and unlawfully possessed the ammunition. Now, I also want to be clear that the defense's sentencing memorandum at the time of this recording is not public. So this is purely the government's document that then had 2 prosecutors go on leave after it was filed. That's what we're focusing on. For anyone wondering, we are not going into the defendant's sentencing memorandum in this video. Taranto's actions caused the evacuation of a residential neighborhood and forced law enforcement agents from multiple agencies to respond to his false bomb hoax. The government recommends that the court sentence Taranto to 27 months of incarceration total for the offenses he committed. A 27-month sentence reflects the gravity of Taranto's conduct, his lack of remorse, and the need to deter him and others from engaging in similar threatening conduct. So this is the factual background. On January 6, 2021, thousands of people comprising a mob of rioters attacked the United States Capitol. Now, I think it's worth pointing out, the current government probably doesn't like this being described as a mob of rioters. While a joint session of Congress met to certify the results of the 2020 presidential election, Taranto was accused of participating in the riot in Washington, D.C. by entering the U.S. Capitol building. After the riot, Taranto returned to his home in the state of Washington, where he promoted conspiracy theories about the events of January 6, 2021. Now, I get the feeling the current government doesn't like the conspiracy theory part, right? Now, what I'm going to say is, you'll notice there's a big gap here, right? There's a big gap from January 6 to 2023. In this time frame, he was joining the convoy that traveled across America. He was also at a nightly pro-J6er protest outside the DC jail for months. The only time any attention seemed to be targeting him was when he had a falling out with the J6er protest. So if you're wondering, why is there a gap? Well, they were looking into him around that time. Just don't think that nothing happened between there and he suddenly popped back onto the government's radar. In June 2023, Taranto returned to Washington, D.C. He drove through the city, the surrounding region in his van, and engaged in alarming behavior that targeted public officials. His erratic behavior intensified in June 2023 when he live-streamed himself and suggested he had outfitted his vehicle with a detonator. He made several statements indicating he intended to blow up his vehicle at the National Institute of Standards and Technology. He said that he was headed to NIST, that his van was self-driving. He said that he was just going one way for this mission to hell. He remarked that the vehicle was capable of driving itself, and he would not need to be anywhere near it when it goes off. Taranto said he had been working on a detonator but didn't really need one for this. U.S. Capitol Police obtained a copy of this footage and issued a be on the lookout alert to several law enforcement agencies, informing them of Taranto's van and his comments about a detonator. So, that is the time frame they are mentioning. Again, he did not return to DC to do this. He was already in DC and had been a protester in DC for an extended period of time before this occurred. There's a lot of wording of like not including certain facts that make things sound worse than they are. I'm not absolving Taylor Taranto of anything he did, but just be aware the government's wording here, because I know so much about the case. I don't like their wording. I don't like the way they are portraying a lot of this, because it doesn't, it sounds worse in the scenario that he returned to do this, not that he was already in the city and had been protesting and had been trying to get access to J6 footage and all sorts of other stuff, right? So again, not defending Taylor Taranto, I'm just saying know that this doesn't incorporate and cover everything that was going on. The next day, on June 29, 2023, then former President Donald Trump published on social media platform the purported address of former President Barack Obama. I get the feeling that Donald Trump being thrown into this is something that the current government does not like. Taranto reposted the address on the same platform and thereafter started live streaming from his van on his YouTube channel. Taranto broadcast footage of himself as he drove through the Kilauea neighborhood in Washington, D.C., claiming he was searching for tunnels he believed would provide him access to the private residence of certain high-profile individuals, including former President Obama. He parked his van, walked away from it, and approached a restricted area protected by the United States Secret Service. He walked through the nearby woods and stated, "Gotta get the shot, stop at nothing to get the shot." After noticing the presence of the Secret Service, he said, "If I were them, I'd be watching this, watching my every move." He also said, "So yeah, more likely these guys are all hanged for treason, and I control the block, we've got him surrounded." When Secret Service agents approached him, Taranto fled, but he was apprehended and placed under arrest. So, yes, Donald Trump posted what was claimed to be the address of President Barack Obama, and Taranto reposted it, and then he was in that neighborhood live streaming. Now, you might be wondering, what was the defense for gotta get the shot? He was talking, the defense's angle is that it was for filming and calling them out and being a journalist. It's been a long time since I followed this case, so I might miss some things or forget to mention certain aspects or get things slightly off, but that is the gist of what they were going for with the defense. Shortly following his arrest, officers located Taranto's van and multiple law enforcement agencies responded to the scene. Mindful of the possible existence of an explosive device or detonator, members of the Metropolitan Police Department and FBI Special Agent bomb technicians conducted a safety sweep of the van for hazardous or dangerous materials. A lawful search was then conducted in Taranto's van, which was parked near the scene of his arrest in Kilauea. 2 firearms were seized from the backpack he left in the van: CZ Scorpion, and there's a serial number, an MP pistol, again, serial number. The CZ Scorpion had an accessory attached to his frame, marketed by SB Tactical as a stabilizing brace. Police also recovered hundreds of rounds of ammunition. What they aren't mentioning is they also recovered a YAM. There was a YAM in this car. The van. There's so many photos of the YAM being in there, and suddenly it's not listed on any of the inventories. I want to know what happened to the YAM. They do have a photo here. Again, no YAM. And here's the charges. He was charged by superseding indictment with the following: possession of unregistered firearm, carrying a pistol without a license, possession of a large capacity ammunition feeding device, unlawful possession of ammo, false information and hoaxes, obstruction of official proceeding, entering or remaining in a restricted building or grounds. A lot of this is January 6 charges. Disorderly conduct in a Capitol building, parading, demonstrating, or picketing in a Capitol building, and several counts were subsequently dismissed pursuant to motions filed by the government, the suit to a pardon. The bench trial in this case started on March 13, 2025, and concluded May 13, 2025, and concluded on May 20th, 2025. On May 20th, 2025, the court rendered its finding and found defendant guilty of the remaining counts: 2 counts of carrying a pistol, 1 count of unlawful possession of ammo, one count of false information and hoaxes. So that's the only thing he got out of all those charges. Those are the only ones that actually stuck. Taranto now faces sentencing for these 4 counts. As noted by the pre-sentence report issued by the U.S. Probation Office, the defendant faces the following penalties. So the CPWL are just 5 years imprisonment, no more than 3 supervised release, statutory maximum statutory fine of $12,500. My tongue twisted here. For unlawful possession of ammunition, 1 year max, and for hoaxes up to 5-year max. The sentencing guidelines and analysis. We'll just continue on here because I think we've pretty much covered why the government doesn't like this case, but his felonious conduct prompted a large-scale law enforcement response to the potential threat of a car bomb, and his actions caused a substantial disruption in a residential neighborhood that was protected by Secret Service. His bomb hoax followed actions and statements designed to intimidate and harass current and former elected officials. His possession of 2 guns and hundreds of rounds of ammunition should be viewed with the backdrop of political violence in mind. At a time when acts of violence perpetrated for political reasons are justifiably generating substantial public concern. Moreover, Taranto's broadcasts his criminal behavior indiscriminately through social media to promote fear and violence. And let's see here. The government notes that, as laid out in the PSR, an upward departure may apply to this case. So yeah, that's where they're going with the upward departure. Well, no. While the government is not arguing for an upward departure, the possible application speaks for the serious nature. They're just trying to get on the high end. Taranto's private messages reflect his violent intent around the time of these offenses. This is from April 2023. We have to kill everybody who got in my way. I need you to seek vengeance against them. You have to kill or be killed. Respond to a message from Ermi, which she replies, spread love to all. Taranto responded, write love bullets. Telegram messages. Discussing former President Kamala Harris. We can kill her through redacted. From an exchange with Ermi. Taranto, this is the biggest contract I've ever satisfied. Contract, are you okay? We have to kill them all. From the same exchange, you can't, too many, payouts in 100 of millions, I have to, or at least die trying. We have more, we have to kill them all. I'm going incognito, right? We have to kill them all. I'm wearing my 45, I need to get in, they can't stop me. The ellipses are in the original messages and do not indicate omissions. You know, they have to mention this partly because in 2025, people are going to ask, is that AI? Because AI loves to do the triple period. Explaining why he visited a Maryland elementary school on June 18, 2023. The reason probably we were picking that location was because it's, Raskin. Raskin he loves over there, and he's one of the guys that hates January 6 people, or more like Trump supporters, and it's kind of like sending a shockwave through him because I did nothing wrong. And he's probably freaking out saying shit like, well, he's stalking me, like AP there. Even though I didn't go to his house or anything, I didn't tell anyone where he is because I want him all to myself. Now, you might be confused if you're not it might be confusing if you are a longtime viewer. AP is standing for a counter-protester of the J6er protest. And at one point, she mentioned him appearing where she was. And she was going to ask him if he was stalking her, but then she had to ask why he was driving around in his van in his underwear, which he responded, it's a free country. Yeah. Taranto's menacing rhetoric harms public discourse and encouraged others to use threats and violence to advance their views or silence their perceived political opponents. Accordingly, a substantial term of incarceration is necessary to reflect the seriousness of the offense, promote respect for law, and provide the punishment for the offense. So here is the history. You might be wondering, what led to this, right? Taranto is a 39-year-old man from Pasco, Washington. He reports that he is a veteran who was enlisted in the Navy from 2004 to 2010. He has been unemployed since 2013 and claims to be 100% disabled for post-traumatic stress disorder related to his military service. Now, I will say, okay, Taranto's employment with the U.S. military and service-connected disability rating have not been verified. This is one of those things where I sit there and I go, why has the government not verified that? like, we're talking post-traumatic stress disorder, military service, like, oh, we didn't look into it. But let's continue. He is married and has 2 children. When the U.S. Probation Office for Eastern District of Washington visited his home on August 11, 2025, they found a gun safe in Taranto's home containing an unknown number of firearms. So, Taranto's wife claims she's the only person who knows the combination of the safe, and Taranto does not have access to it. I mean, if there's nothing saying he can't be in a house with firearms, they got to take that as at their word, I think. And this is one of those things I don't like, right? Like, is he allowed to have guns in his home during the probation, yes or no? And if the answer is yes, is he allowed to have them in the home if the wife's the only one that has access to it? And if the answer is yes, why is any of this included? Why are they not checking and verifying? This is the type of stuff that just annoys me. I don't like it. Whether it's okay they can do it this way or not doesn't make me like it. So we need for the sentence imposed to reflect seriousness of the offense and promote respect for law. As with the nature and circumstances of the offense, this factor supports the sentence of incarceration. Taranto falsely claimed he would drive a car bomb into a federal facility that houses a neutron reactor. He possessed 2 firearms, hundreds of rounds of bullets the day after propagating the hoax. His actions caused serious concern about the danger he posed to the public. Moreover, Taranto's actions were part of a broader campaign of intimidation against federal government and public officials. Such threats epitomize disrespect for the law. So the thing is, with all of this here, are they tying it back to J6? Because again, this could be why people got removed and, put on leave. So here we just have the guidelines, talk of the guidelines. Previous cases. All right. Let's see here. Here we go. Although no other cases contains the same balance of aggravating and mitigating factors present here, the sentences of other defendants convicted under 18 U.S.C. 1038. Defendant Hall is pled guilty. By contrast, Taranto's threat caused a substantial disruption. His threat was indiscriminately broadcast to the public, not just law enforcement. He was motivated by his grievance against government. However, Frith's downward departure is easily distinguishable from Taranto's conduct, given the substantial difference in ages. Taranto is approximately 2 decades older than Frith, and the targets of their respective conduct for Frith, the private hotel that employed him, versus federal buildings and employees of NIST in the case of Taranto. Frith's sentencing also directly incorporated his acceptance of responsibility via entry of a plea. Taranto has not accepted the wrongfulness of his actions at any stage of the case. Finally, Frith's bomb threats, while unquestionably disruptive to public safety services, were not related to the broader political discourse and did not involve any troubling statements relating to public figures. Taranto's actions targeted a federal building, federal workers, and public officials. As a result, any disparity between Frith's sentence in the 27 months sought by the government for Taranto's reflects an appropriate relationship sentence for 2 relatively disparate defendants. So they're trying to separate him from other cases where people got lower sentences. And the big thing that I think is worth remembering here, we get to the very end, you're going to see at the top here, respectfully submitted, Jeanine Pirro. They put 2 DOJ prosecutors. They put those 2 on leave for this. This is also, right here, Jeanine Pirro's listed. Is she on the chopping block, right? For letting this through. There's been a lot of things that she has failed at that I wouldn't be shocked if the current administration gets rid of her. This is kind of a disjointed video, I know. But you might be wondering too, well, how much of this sentence would be left? I'm not sure. I'm not sure how many months he spent in jail. And while in jail, he was assaulted by other J6ers, and then they called out of the jail to the protest he formerly was a part of and celebrated it. So, like, he was wrongly treated in the jail, and he's the one that got punished in that scenario, not the people that admitted that they attacked him. A lot about this case I don't like. Most likely, the end result of this is going to end up being not what the government requested. The government rarely gets what they request. And whatever that is probably going to end up being time served. That would be my guess. I expect him to get time served. But we'll see. Just wanted to put it out there because they fired the prosecutors, which was crazy. And I saw some news articles running with it. And yeah, this case had a lot of issues. A lot of issues in this case. But the thing that got prosecutors put on leave, fired, put on leave, we know how that goes, put on leave, is that they accurately mentioned the connection to Trump. That he took action after Trump's post. Which is a thing that happened. That's a detail that I think makes sense to include. It makes sense to include that. It would also make sense to, look and make sure he was a veteran.